here's the thing about imposter syndrome. It's not something that's coming from your logical mind. It's actually something that's sitting deep inside your subconscious mind. And so a lot of the tools that we get told to use to overcome imposter syndrome just don't work because they're trying to address it from a logic perspective, from a conscious mind perspective. And so join me for a 90-minute live masterclass that I'm going to be hosting on 2 different days, on the 27th of July and on the 30th of July, where I'm going to walk you through real practical tips, tricks, things that you can do that actually work to help you overcome and eliminate your imposter syndrome. That's right. This isn't no rah-rah motivation, say affirmations kind of thing. I'm going to be helping you use the very tools that I've used to help me overcome imposter syndrome. So that's July 27th, July 30th. You have a choice. You can join me for one or both masterclasses. They both will be live and I'll be teaching the exact same content both days. And I promise you, you will leave there feeling better about yourself, feeling like you are worthy of the extraordinary life that is meant to be yours. What is something that you probably have in common with Michelle Obama? What is something that you probably have in common with 82% of people, according to research? Well, if you want to find out what that is, stick around for today's episode. And I'm going to tell you about this thing that so many people, so many of us have in common. All right, so I want to start this episode by telling you a story. I promise it'll be a quick story. I promise it is relevant to the subject. So a couple of years ago, maybe not a couple, maybe like 3 or 4, I can't remember, I had the distinct pleasure, opportunity of meeting the Michelle Obama, like in real life. And it just so happened that through a set of circumstances, I was lucky enough to be last in line to meet her, and they were running ahead of schedule. So she actually had some time on our hands to chat. So we got to chatting. And in our conversation, I asked her a question because she was about to go on stage in front of literally I can't remember how many thousands of people. It was a sold out arena. And yet she seemed so calm and bubbly. And I asked her, of course, as someone who does speak as well and who gets nervous every single time that I have to speak, I asked her, how do you do it? How do you stay so calm? And you know what she said? She said, it doesn't matter how prepared I am. It doesn't matter where it is. I'm always nervous. And then she went on to say, I actually think a lot of the time, the reason people show up is not because I'm Michelle. They're showing up because I'm the former First Lady of the United States. What? Blow me over, because how could this woman who's so accomplished, she has 2 Ivy League degrees, she worked in a high-flying career before she became First Lady, how could she think that the only reason we'd paid mucho dinero was because she was the former First Lady? We were all there because she's Michelle. And she had amazing hair and she smelled amazing too. But I digress. Here's the thing. I read a quote from her afterwards where she was talking about imposter syndrome, how even now as Michelle Obama, she still feels imposter syndrome. She still feels like no one actually really cares what she's got to say or that she's not good enough. And here's the interesting thing about that is if Michelle Obama can feel like she's an imposter, imagine what it feels like for the rest of us. Well, research says actually it's very common among the rest of us that 82% of people at some point in their lives feel imposter syndrome. They feel like they don't belong. They feel self-doubt. They feel like they've got to be really, really good, better than everybody else, that they feel like they've got to excel for them to matter. So what does imposter syndrome look like? All right, for most people, imposter syndrome looks like self-doubt. It's questioning whether what you do is actually good enough. It's when people say to you, hey, you did such a good job, where you think they're just making it up or that they're just being kind to you, that you doubt that you actually are as good as everybody says you are. Imposter syndrome shows itself as perfectionism, where we feel like we've got to do everything absolutely perfectly, where we feel like we've got to excel, we've got to be better than everybody else for us to matter. Imposter syndrome can actually also show up as the opposite of perfectionism. It can show up as us not wanting to take any responsibility, where we're like, I don't want to take on any responsibility because if I take on responsibility, I'll actually have to do a really good job, and I don't know that I can do a good job. Those are just some of the ways. Also, we're afraid of judgment. We're afraid to put our work out there because, oh my gosh, going back to perfectionism, what if my work isn't good enough? What if people find out that I'm a fraud? What if people figure out that I'm not as good as they think I am? Those are some of the ways. And another big way that imposter syndrome shows up is when we don't want to own our success, where we think that the only reason that we're successful is because we got lucky or because of circumstances or some other reason where we deny our own success. And it's so common. The fact that research says 82% of people feel like an imposter at some point in their lives. And it's especially prevalent among women. Women in particular feel imposter syndrome the most, and also among people who are identified high achievers, people who have really high expectations of themselves, people who set the bar exceptionally high. Now, here's the thing about imposter syndrome. Any of those things, the self-doubt, the fear of judgment, the perfectionism, not wanting to own our success, they can be good in small measure. It can be good to want to do a really good job, to really set the bar high for yourself. It can be good for you to doubt whether you're really as good as everybody says you are, because it helps to push you. It makes you want to do better, be better all of the time. But there's that line that gets crossed where it literally becomes debilitating, where you literally feel like everything you do is up for question, where you feel like you don't know that you actually are as good, that you never allow yourself to own your success. That's when imposter syndrome becomes a really bad thing. That's when, as well, we get into states of anxiety. That's when people get into anxiety attacks because they feel like they're not good enough. They're afraid to be judged. They're afraid to put their work out there. So, what can you do about imposter syndrome? The first thing to know is that imposter syndrome is typically something that's not even coming from your logic, because you could logic with yourself to say, no, I actually did a good job. I got a good grade, or yeah, that presentation was really good. Yeah, did I mess up a little bit, or did I fluff my lines, or could I have, got a better mark maybe, but I did a good job. That's the thing about imposter syndrome, is it's not even something you can logic with, because it's coming from your subconscious mind. It's those limiting beliefs, those beliefs that tell you that you're not good enough, you're not worthy of success. No one's ever going to believe that you can have the big life that you dream of. It's our subconscious mind. And if you've listened to my podcast before, then you know that 95% of everything that we do, 95% of everything that we do is coming from our subconscious mind. We think we're making conscious decisions. We think that our conscious mind, our logic, is the one that's running our life. But really, what's playing is the subconscious programming, those subconscious beliefs we have about ourselves. So what can you do to overcome and to eliminate imposter syndrome? The most effective way that I have found to eliminate imposter syndrome is actually going directly to your subconscious mind, reprogramming your subconscious beliefs. And how can you do that? Well, your subconscious mind is programmed by a couple of things, by repetition, by feeling, and you can also do it through subconscious reprogramming, or sometimes it's known as hypnotherapy or hypnosis. That for me has been the most effective way to address and eliminate imposter syndrome, because you're going directly into your subconscious mind, and what you're doing is rooting out the beliefs that aren't serving you, and instead instead, you're putting into your subconscious mind the beliefs that actually serve you. And I'm actually doing a live workshop, a live subconscious reprogramming workshop that you can join me for, a live 90-minute subconscious reprogramming workshop. But short of you doing that, what else can you do? Well, the very first step is acknowledging it. Acknowledging that you're feeling imposter syndrome. And so that can come from anytime those thoughts come up about, am I good enough? And was that good enough? And, do I belong here? Acknowledging, I think that this is coming from my subconscious mind. And then taking a moment to examine that belief, to ask why. Why would I believe that? Why would I believe that I'm not good enough? Why would I believe that I don't belong? Why do I think that presentation wasn't good enough? And when you can start to bring what is subconscious or unconscious into your conscious mind, then you can start to address it. Because at that point, then you're aware of the subconscious programming that's running in the background. The second thing that you can do after acknowledging it is share your feelings. Talking about it, talking about the fact that I don't feel I'm good enough. I feel like I'm an imposter, or I feel like I don't measure up. Because what inevitably will happen is whoever you're talking to will help you see that that's all in your mind, that it's not the actual truth. Because again, if we go to the fact that your imposter syndrome is coming from your subconscious mind. It's not even something that you can logic with. But having somebody else mirror that to you, the fact that, no, that's not true. You are good enough. That presentation was good. And also being open to feedback, being able to ask them, okay, if I was to do it differently, what would you have done different? And taking that feedback on. The third thing that you can do is celebrate. You've heard me talk about this so many times, and I've talked about it a lot when it comes to habits. Because if you remember, when it comes to habits, we talk about A, B, C. And the A is about what's your anchor for your habit, do your behavior. And then the C is all about celebrate, celebrate, celebrate. And I've shared with you many times that one of my mentors is BJ Fogg, and he studies behavior at Stanford University for a living. And the thing that he said most people, the majority of people struggle with is celebrating themselves. And so what you can do is actually make it a practice for yourself. I have actually implemented in my life the practice of at the end of every single day, writing down 3 things that I can celebrate myself for. So the third thing that you can do is celebrate your success. So the first thing is acknowledge that you're feeling like an imposter and ask why. The second thing is to share your feelings with somebody else. And the third thing is to celebrate your successes, because that really helps to anchor in the fact that, you know what, I actually do some great things. What's the fourth thing that you can do? Let go of perfectionism. Good is good enough. And I know we live in a world where we're striving for excellence. And I'm not saying put out mediocre work, but really be measured in terms of what is your standard, what is good and what is excellent, but what is stepping into that or crossing that line from trying to be excellent and trying to get into perfectionism. Let go of perfectionism. The fifth thing that you can do is to cultivate self-compassion. Be kind to yourself. What are the words that you would say to somebody else who came to you who said, I feel like a fraud, or I don't feel like I'm good enough, or I really don't think that I'm good at what I do? What are the words that you would say to somebody else who was feeling this? This is an opportunity for you to turn that compassion on yourself and to practice self-compassion. And the last one that I'm going to share with you might surprise you. Share your failures. Here's what it does. Number one, it takes the power away from them, because a lot of the time we suffer in silence, and the things that we keep to ourselves are the things that ultimately have power over us. Whereas when you share your failures, you'll find that they lose their power over you. And second of all, in high probability, you'll find that your failures will resonate with somebody else. You sharing your failure, somebody else will say, oh, I experienced that too. Because what is unique to you is common to many, many other people. So share your failures because it helps take away that power of shame from them. And in all probability, somebody else will help you see that it's not as bad as you think. So those are some of the steps that you can quickly and easily take. Affirmations is also another great one. But if you listen to a previous episode that I shared, there's also a sting to affirmations. If you say things that your subconscious mind clearly knows is not true, then they can actually have the opposite effect. And so those are the things that I'd love to share with you today in terms of what you can do to overcome and eliminate imposter syndrome. So number one, acknowledge that you're feeling like an imposter. Number two, share your feelings with somebody else. Number three, celebrate your successes. The fourth thing, let go. Let go of perfectionism. 5, cultivate self-compassion. Be kind to yourself. And the sixth thing, share your failures, because I guarantee somebody else has experienced it or experienced even worse than what you have. So I hope those steps will help you in your journey to eliminating and overcoming imposter syndrome. And as I said, the most effective way that I have found is actually going to the root of the cause, which is in your subconscious mind. I hope that was helpful to you. And I hope that you remember always that you are worthy. You are worthy to be, to do, to have anything and everything that your heart desires.